You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
And away we go, the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. I'm on location here in Edmonton, the site of the Stanley Cup Final. And I can't believe it. When I booked this trip, I didn't think I'd be coming here to watch a sweep, but that could happen tomorrow night, Rosie. How's it going, bud?
You're watching a slaughtering is what it seems to be, man. They don't have any answer for that team so far. I really think they were going to get a split in Edmonton. Obviously, they still can on Saturday, but that was tough watching for Oilers fans, which I was watching it with. And the one guy, actually, my buddy's got it booked to go down to Nashville for a couple days and fly to Miami and catch Game 5. It's all booked. He's going to be watching Game 4 in Nashville. And I mean, who would have thought they might get swept? You'd think they'd win one game, get to a Game 5. So he was just pulling his hair out during that game, but he's got to get on a plane, go down and see what happens on Saturday. I feel for him. Nonetheless, it's a trip that won't kill you, regardless if you watch hockey or not.
No, you're right on that front. Another execution. I was stunned, just more so, and I know you hated sort of the narrative and the storyline of Florida arriving late, waiting a couple days to come here to Edmonton because they are ready to play. And I felt the longer that first period went 0-0 and then the Panthers, get the job done. I just thought from that standpoint, it was very Panthers from the last couple of years where they're so composed, they're so prepared. Like I was even laughing when they introduced Paul Maurice on the PA system. He gives like a smug little smirk to the crowd. Like he's, the whole feeling of the series, the Panthers have been here before. And at times it's felt like the moment's been too big for the Edmonton Oilers. But last night specifically, Rosie, I mean, the breakdown's pretty simple. You just can't make mistakes against the Florida Panthers. I just think it cost Edmonton huge when it comes to Skinner, Bouchard, the list goes on and on here.
Oh, Nurse as well. There's some lost assignments, turnovers, some lackadaisical plays, and it's just, as soon as you do, those Panthers literally pounce on any mistake, any loose puck, any turnover, and just bury it, man. They seem so poised, so mature. They're just all of them, man. I totally agree with what you say. It looks like they're poised to do this. They're comfortable. Like they're in the driver's seat. They're confident. They're in control. They're not worried about nothing but getting the goddamn job done. And the Oilers are kind of looking a little stunned. And, Connor's not being Connor. Leon's not being Leon. They need a goal. So do they put those guys together? And then can you even double shift them? There's times where it looks like, they would normally take off and do things and they don't. And you wonder, are they gassed right now? Like, are they being overplayed? Who can you go to if you're not going to those two? It gets pretty thin right after that. I think their construction of, how talented their top two players top of the world. You need more depth and the Panthers just have that in spades. And they're in complete control, man. It's kind of rough for the Oilers fans, but it is what it is right now. They got to get one win at home and last chance, obviously.
They're done. There's no other way to put it. I think your breakdown in Florida is very accurate. They come at you in waves. And then on top of that, like we talked about this going into the Stanley Cup Final, it was all about Alexander Barkov winning the Conn Smythe. I think there's one guy who's winning the Conn Smythe. His name is Sergei Bobrovsky. I think you look at the body of work last year, the first 3 rounds, he was far and away the guy to win, and then just fell short like the rest of the team against Vegas in the Cup Final. And now, conversely, this year, he has gotten stronger and stronger as the postseason has gone. The Eastern Conference Final, he was stellar against the New York Rangers, and now he's been on a different planet, I felt, in the Stanley Cup Final. And you could speak to this, having played in this league, just the comfort level when you have a guy behind you who is a brick wall, who, man, even just watching as a fan in the building, nothing feels like it's going in. And that's a scary feel for a player, isn't it?
Yeah, even like high-end scoring chances look like nothing plays with him there, man. And I think it's kind of gotten into the Oilers' heads a little bit. You see some opportunities where they're not burying the chances like they normally would. They're not picking the corner. McDavid, Draisaitl have both put a couple of big chances right in his chest, but it's because he's there. And I can't believe how, I didn't realize how well he does the splits and covers the bottom of the net. There's so many times where I'm like, that's a goal, but he's somehow at the oddest angle has his pad flat on the ice, and he's just everywhere, man. And sometimes he plays really deep and he can get side to side really easily, and then sometimes he's out 3 feet out of his out of his crease, and he just knows when to jump and when to hang back. He's disgusting. It's not even close. So like my Conn Smythe pick from, I don't even know, the second round, I think I picked for him, and I think that's a lock. But it's just they can't solve him, man. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, and then to think that the Oilers come back to make it 4-3 and apply some pressure and put the heat on. Then you look back at some of those like little dinky giveaways and those mistakes. Like that's the difference in the game. And it's just Florida is everywhere, man. And yeah, the series is over. It's just I'm thinking if we're gonna get 4 or 5 games out of it, I wonder if they can win one at home somehow and basically give them a chance to win it at home in Game 5.
I wonder how Jonathan Huberdeau feels right now. Ever since that trade, man, it's been a different Florida Panthers team. And you talk about one polarizing player coming into that room, but the entire DNA of the Florida Panthers has changed. Like even some of the reclamation projects they've brought in. Sam Bennett was one of those. Vladimir Tarasenko, I thought really struggled early on after coming over from Ottawa. I think he's been fantastic here in the Stanley Cup Final. I think the timeliness is what you're looking for to transfer the conversation to the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's just so many avenues, so many different things they can do differently in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The goaltending could be better, the execution. The other thing I noticed last night, when they needed the big boys to rise up, it's exactly what happened. It was Barkov. Reinhart scores a goal. The back end was moving the puck. Like, notwithstanding that 10-minute span, as you referenced in the third period, where it was a 4-1 game, suddenly a 4-3 game. They played just a stellar road game. Like, I was in that building, man. It was really loud. And I do think that plays some sort of an impact. That's exactly how you want to start a game after you're winning the first 2 games on home ice, is sort of low event hockey. And I thought they took the crowd right out of the game right away.
Yeah, they did. They just, it's identity, man. Like when they score, it's not like, yeah, big Sally, look at me. It's just like, look around for the boys. Like, that's how we do it. That's how we do it. We know what we're doing. It's paying off. Keep going. Like that's like the look on their face all the time. And it's just identity. And when you think about the Leafs and them in the playoffs, it seems like they're just like, well, how's it going to work? Like, should we try this? And maybe I'll do that. And hopefully that works. It's like they don't have that identity. And I can't think, I think the Vegas Golden Knights had it last year. I think the Panthers have had it for a few years now. Teams that win the Stanley Cup have a strong identity. They know who they are. That goes without saying, hence why you're at the top of the mountain. But I look at those Panthers and just think they're so well coached. It doesn't matter who you talk about, their reclamation projects, guys that have been struggling that come in. They're just like, oh, what are we doing? What is the blueprint and the game plan? Okay, I'll launch myself into that and just buy in. And away we go. And then all these guys are like, once they're part of it, they're riding the wave. And it elevates everybody, man. Guys that don't have it, guys that are a little bit lower on the depth chart. Like everyone buys into the same bloody program and pulls on the same rope. It just raises all ships, man. And you're seeing it in spades. And it's just, when I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm like, you have to adopt that identity, whatever it is. The way you're coached has to be driven in. It has to be 100% expected. There has to be accountability if you're not pulling on that rope, and you have to get everyone to buy in. All those buzzwords are buzzwords for a reason, and it's because it's what it takes to win. And I'm excited for them to get personnel in that's willing to buy in and to be coached by a guy who knows what it looks like and has got a team to buy in before. And away you go in your playoff future, and you can look at the examples right now on who's doing it in spades.
Not to make excuses, but from the sounds of it around the Stanley Cup Final, there's going to be a couple injuries that come out from the Edmonton perspective, and you're really going to nod your head and be like, huh. It's quite the role reversal from last year, if you recall, where Florida gets to the Cup Final, they had nothing left. Matthew Tkachuk couldn't get out of bed. It's got that feel, and Edmonton just being steamrolled. I think it's also like a sad reality, Rosie, that you work so hard to get here. You beat an incredible Dallas Stars team and Vancouver and Los Angeles. And unfortunately, it's going to be all for naught. Like all the accolades about Zach Hyman's season, McDavid is great. Draisaitl is great. It doesn't matter. One team's going to win the Stanley Cup, and it's going to be the Florida Panthers, unfortunately, for the Oilers.
I know. It's like as devastating as anything. Yeah. At the end of the day, the Oilers are going to be in the same place that the Leafs were this year, just getting beat. And you have nothing to show for it. You can talk about your trophy or some bullshit with no one cares about that thing. And at the end of the day, to get that close, and to feel like, holy, we might have something special. Think of the memories, think of the lifelong, friendships, and the 20-year reunion and the banner that hangs up there, and you can always take your kids and your grandkids to look at the Stanley Cup. There's my name right there. Look at that team. My God, they got nothing. They get none of it. And it's the end of freaking June by the time they're done, and they're going to be beat to shit, exhausted, and frustrated. It's brutal, man. It's such a battle and such a war. And yeah, I think that when the cup's presented and things settle down, I think you are going to hear so and so had this, so and so had that, and it's no different with any team any year. But you got to overcome that, and you got to get a little bit lucky. And it seems like Florida, as healthy as could be, almost, they've had a couple scares with Barkov or whatever, but they seem healthy. And yeah, the Oilers just don't seem like they're the Oilers, and maybe that's just because of how dominating the Florida Panthers are and make them look around, not know what to do. But maybe it's also because some guys are banged up more than they're letting on.
Look, this is not a Edmonton Oilers pity party, but what do you think the conversation is going to be right after this team loses? Is Leon Draisaitl staying? Like, we're not really having the same conversation in Toronto, but Draisaitl is going to be a year away from UFA on July 1, and that's going to be a mega conversation in the hockey world, but we'll save it. There was a bit of Leafs news that I want to get to off the top here. I don't know if you want to react to it. I don't know what we can say about it, but according to Pierre LeBrun, after a 6-year tenure, the Leafs and AGM Lawrence Gilman, who is obviously a vet around the league, mutually parted ways. His deal expires next month. You have anything to add to that, Rosie? I really don't.
What was his role?
AGM. He was part of like the brain trust. Like the Leafs, among other teams, have like 17 different executives. I don't know what anybody does.
I know it's irrelevant to us. It's relevant to the people back there that do the day-to-day, that have the board meetings and the get-togethers and the monthly breakdowns and all that stuff. That's fine, but that doesn't mean a lot to me because he's not involved in any way, shape, or form from what I can see. So I don't have anything to say about it at all. No, they can mix and match their guys. I don't really care. At the end of the day, I really think it comes down to the guys in that locker room and the way they're coached. And if there's buy-in, and if there's an understanding of the direction they all want to go, and if it's about the crest on the front and not the name on the back, I mean, I think that's the best way to get every single individual success there. And in the meantime, the architect's going to be putting pieces together at this time of year to try to give them the best chance of winning when they do come together and play their business. So yeah, it's I don't care about the behind the scenes stuff at all. It comes down to the guys in the locker room.
Speaking of which, guys in the locker room, we caught up with Noah Gregor, current Toronto Maple Leaf, earlier on this week. We're going to play that in about 20 minutes or so. Yeah,
I know. Good guy. It's he's been training up in Edmonton there, and he says the city's buzzing a little bit, but he's got that group. It reminds me, he had his gym gear on. He's in his car. It's around whatever noon, and he's just getting finished up. It reminds me of doing that for a living, which I don't miss the summer training sessions and puking in garbage cans and just kicking the shit out of yourself. So good on him. Looks like he's working hard and a solid stand-up guy.
Well, you had training when you were playing in the league. I thought it was just like hacking a pack of darts, a couple drinks later, and you're good to go for the next season.
I'm not quite that old, but no, there was some training involved.
Fair enough. Good to know. At the Leafs Nation 401 here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. The opening segment is brought to you by Greta Bar YYZ. For a good time, find Greta, 590 King Street West. Weekly specials, live sports, over 60-plus arcade games. Let the games begin. Go big. Go to Greta Bar YYZ. We seem to have ignited something on this program earlier this week. I ran into Elliot Friedman last night on the street here in Edmonton. I said, thank you once again for your time, but thank you for the tidbit about hypothesizing about Vegas and Toronto being a match, potentially in a trade for your boy, Mitch Marner. So I thought it would be a great exercise on the Friday edition of the show to investigate further and look at some names who could be of significance to the Maple Leafs. And of course, as Friedman brought up, Shea Theodore is number one on that list. He's a number one D, has 1 year left at $5.2 million. So he's going to need an upgrade, but I think he makes a lot of sense. I know he shoots right, but I think you would also slot Morgan Riley in like a 3-4 pairing, and maybe you put Theodore and Riley together. But the one thing I will say about Shea Theodore, pulling a bunch of players around the league, he is really good at putting the puck on net. And that shouldn't be understated, especially on the power play. He's got the best 1-foot shot in a current player said when talking about Shea Theodore. I don't think that could be understated. Like, he's the one guy among many I would look at on that franchise right now.
Yeah, his numbers are nuts. He's a leader. He's won. He's done everything. He is left-handed, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's not the right-hander we need. Pietrangelo is the
Yeah.
right-hander we need. I don't know if they're even willing to part with these guys, but I do feel like the Mitch Marner thing could be enticing. And if Elliott says there's reason to believe, maybe there's slight interest, and I'm sure they'll be exploring any type of opportunity where people are interested. I would love to be a fly in the wall in Tree Living's office. Who's saying what? Are guys just saying no thank you? Are guys saying maybe? Are guys are guys saying wait and see? Like, what is the traction on this? Has there been an offer, whether it's laughable or not? Like, how much interest is in this thing? I'm curious to know. You do go through the DB and you look at all these guys, and then you look at Mitch and his numbers. He can put up points, man, especially in the regular season.
Yeah.
And guys that need a guy that can just make the plays, and have some space to pay the guy and realize that he makes a lot of money and is only going to make more money. I wonder how much interest is out there. And other people think, yeah, we know, but we're not interested in, a guy that can't get it done in the play. Is that hindering him? I wonder if people buy into that, or if they're like, no, don't worry,
Yeah.
that's just Toronto. I don't know. It's interesting, but again, interested to see what happens. And I don't know. I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith that
Are
something's going to get
you?
done a tiny bit.
I'm not. I think it's happening
I hope you're right. I hope it happens fast. I want to know. I
tomorrow.
don't like the question marks. Like I said, you're trying to
Yeah.
get that buy-in and trying to get that identity. It's very hard to do with all this, stuff floating around in the ether. Like, is Mitch going to be here? Does he want to be here? Is he happy? Is he mad? Is he pissed at the team? Is he going like what? Is he playing for himself? Is he just trying to bump his stock up? Like, I want
Yeah.
that rectified, so that the team can just insulate itself and say, we are the Maple Leafs. This is where we're going. We are all in this together, 100% buy-in. That's what it needs to happen. You can't have this shit floating around until the trade deadline. I just don't think it's good for morale. And if something's going to happen, I hope it happens quick.
I had some people tell me that it could happen in early July. I don't see it. I think it has to happen in the next 2 weeks. Believe it or not, we're 2 weeks away today from round 1 of the NHL draft. I should mention as well, I know people were correcting me. Yes, Shea Theodore is a left-handed shooting defenseman. This team needs more right-handed D. But I think it's fascinating, too, to hypothesize. So if a Marner deal does go down, what should the Leafs be looking for? Like, what is the magic potion for you? Because I think this is a really tough deal to do, more so because the Leafs are still in the contender window, right? And you're trading a guy who is an elite piece in this league. A lot of people know he's a year away from UFA, clearly. And so I wonder what kind of price tag you can get back. Like some other names in the conversation in Vegas, William Karlsson's got 3 years left at $5.9 million. He's a top 6 center. Logan Thompson's ideally going to come to mind. He's got 1 year roughly at $777K before he's a free agent, going to get a significant boost in salary. I like Nicolas Waugh quite a bit. He's got 3 years at $3 million. Nick Hague is another guy I watch very, very closely when he played with Mississauga in the OHL. Like, there are pieces on that Vegas team, but if you're looking for like picks, you're not going to get it. And I think it's so interesting too. Every time there's a great player available, it seems like Vegas is all over it. It feels like they're operating under a different cap.
Well, sometimes they are. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's if you get rid of Mitch Marner, I do think you need to try to fill in his point production in a certain amount, in a certain way. I mean, you're not going to go get this pure guy that puts up the kind of points he is, but I think you're looking for a guy with a little more grit, a little more jam, a little more intensity, a little more toughness, a little more willingness, a little more leadership. All those things that I think Mitch falls short in. You can't just dish a million passes and get some assists and that gets the whole job done. I think that's why we're talking about it. But something like that, I think that you use your cap space and free agency to get the defenseman that we've been talking about. But I think in the Mitch, or vice versa, I don't care. But you've got cap space and a potential move of Mitch Marner. I think you want to shore up your forwards. You want to get like a playoff type of performer that can be a difference maker in certain games deeper in the playoffs. So that guy is who I would like to be, filling in Mitch Marner's place. And then whether it's that or the free agency or the cap space free agency type thing, make a deal with some stud defensemen, I think some tweaks could make this team start to look pretty good.
Warrior Wampa writes in Keegan Colasar would be great to get back in a Vegas deal, but that's going to be the problem if a deal like this goes down is the return, because I think it's going to be tough to find like even like a 3-player match equivalent to Mitch Marner. Like he's a 90+ point guy. He's an all-star. Like the regular season accolades speak for themselves. I really can't envision if a trade were to happen in the next year, we'll say, where the perception is that the Leafs won the trade, unfortunately, right? I think, everybody wants to draw conclusions and comparisons to like the Florida and the Calgary Flames trade. I think it was a bit different, obviously, because Matthew Tkachuk wanted out and he was pinpointing where he wanted to go. And to a degree, maybe it's the same with Marner. Maybe he submits a list, maybe he doesn't. But I think that's probably what's going on internally is like, if we do make this trade, what kind of offers are we getting, right? Like, that's why I think they're doing their best to keep this behind closed doors.
Yeah, I mean, there's public perception too.
Yeah.
You don't want to make a trade just to say we made a trade, we're different. That's what Tree Living said. It has to make sense. If he's got something on the table, and there's ways of looking at it. There's the eye test, and then there's the piece of paper test and the stat sheet test. And to me, Mitch Marner passes the stat sheet test when you're looking at the stat lines, but doesn't seem to pass the eye test when you're talking about the intangibles. And so that comes into play too. And there's, no matter what happens, there's going to be people that disagree. That's just the nature of the beast when you're part of a market that's this big. People are gonna put a lot of stock into his numbers and say, are you kidding me? You didn't replace his production. And other people are going to say, are you kidding me? You're going to keep him when he's shown that he can't, elevate his game and be that star guy that everyone talks about when it matters and in the playoffs. And there's back and forth. So no matter what happens, there's going to be naysayers, people saying that the Leafs lost the trade no matter what the hell it is. But at the end of the day, it's up to one man and the group that he surrounded him with to say, knowing what we know, and they know Mitch Marner more than anybody, they're going to say, we have won this trade and we're going to make it based on that fact that we think that when we pull this trigger, we are better and we are suited to go deeper, especially in the playoffs. That's what everything, like the regular season, they've handled that. It's different kind of hockey. They've got the personnel. They've put up the numbers. They've done that. It doesn't necessarily translate to playoff success, obviously. So I think they're looking at, if we can put this team together, use the regular season to all get on the same page, create an identity. Are we looking poised to do better in the playoffs than we have the last 8 years? And that's when they come to that conclusion, that's when they'll pull a trigger and make a deal.
Yeah.
And whether that happens or not, yet to be seen.
Yep, and I think the key is to look different in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the depth is the big word that you use. Like even looking at Florida, guys like Nico Mikkola, who they picked up in free agency, Evan Rodriguez has been a thorn in the side of the Oilers since the series got underway. I don't know if you saw this. Frank Seravalli updated his trade targets list, and Mitch Marner still number one on that list. Martin Necas on there, Ehlers on there, Linus Ullmark's on there. Patrick Laine, I guess, wants a new destination yet again in his career. Ilya Mikheyev, former Toronto Maple Leaf, Jacob Chychrun, who the Leafs were linked to a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Markstrom's on there. I like Philip Gustafsson quite a bit. I've been talking about him in terms of being a potential tandem pairing with Joseph Woll. I think he's a dark horse type guy. Didn't have a great year, but last year he was excellent. There's going to be some names on the market, but it really is unique in the fact that I can't remember the last time the Leafs had the number one name on trade lists. Like people are going to be talking about this around the league, and because it's Toronto, the next 2 weeks after this Cup final is over, leading up to the draft, is going to be mayhem, in my opinion, in terms of chatter, at least.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be interesting. You don't like Linus Ullmark, hey? Like you just don't think they'll deal just because they're like rivals in division, or what?
I would be very hesitant knowing the past. And I think from Boston's perspective too, I don't know if you trade him in the same division. I know that's overhyped conversation. It happens all the time. You want to look for the best deal possible. I love you, Ullmark. I mean, he won obviously the Vezina last year. Hutz has played with him, said he's a quality dude. We had him on the show last year. I just don't think from Boston's perspective, they would even pick up the phone to make a trade with the Maple Leafs when there's so many other teams around the league who are looking for a goaltender, and you don't have to trade him in the division. Like, I don't even think Ottawa's going to get the guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. For some reason, he's the shining star that's available potentially in net. A guy that would come to camp and it's just like, There he is. Like, let
Mhm.
him do his thing. It's not a big question mark. It's not a wait and see. It's not fingers crossed. It's there's your fucking guy.
Yeah,
Let him do his work and let's leave him alone and focus on other things. And I think that's what you need in that market, because that market has picked apart so many goalies. They've ruined guys' careers in certain places. They've, beat them down and then moved them out to have them flourish elsewhere, like a Justin Pogge for, like, it's just you can chew you up and spit you out. And I really just want that stud who's already established, won a Vezina, won cups, and sitting there going, I know what to do. Just shut up and let me do it. And the media would be like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like, I want that, to let him cook. And it seems like every time we get a guy, it's like, well, he was shitty here,
I know.
but we're gonna bring him into Toronto and he's gonna flourish. Like, when has that ever happened? When has that been the
Never.
case? It's the hardest market to play in, arguably, and you need a guy that's suited to handle that and to be left alone by the big machine of the market.
Well, that's why. I mean, we talked about Laurent Brossoit all week long, and I think he's a quality goaltender. But as Elliot Friedman put, he doesn't equate, him and Joseph Woll don't equate to like 82 games. Like, it just would feel very Jonathan Bernier to me. And I understand it is so hard, man. They've been looking for 20, 25 years for a bona fide stud netminder. If there's an offseason to do it where you want to change your approach, you have a new coach, there's a big player potentially up for trade, I think it's this year where you really go after it and say, hey, we're going to solidify that crease for the next couple of years. Like, how amazing would it be to be like doing this show on a daily basis in like November or February, and one of the three topics we talk about is not the crease, where it's like, okay, we know what we're going to get on a nightly basis. You just have no clue, I guess, in Toronto the last couple of years.
Like, you can win a game 4-1 or
Yeah,
5-2. Like, it's
exactly.
always skin of their teeth and weird wins and holding on. And there's a little inkling in the back of your mind of, that's
Mhm.
not going to cut it in the playoffs. Like, that's
Yeah.
not going to get it done. And seems like, yeah. And we hyper scrutinize them. Like, for
Yeah.
example, last night, if that was the Maple Leafs, if the
They would
Florida
blow it
Panthers were the Maple Leafs, we'd be talking
over.
about how they barely hung on and how they gave away the lead. And
Oh, they
we'd
wouldn't win that game. It
well,
would be
you
over.
fucking I mean, if they did the same thing, though,
Yeah. Yeah.
that we'd be scrutinizing how they couldn't hold on to a lead and stuff, but it's the Florida
True.
Panthers, so it's just like, "Oh my god, how good are they?" No one even talks about how they let them back in it. That's hockey, that's playoff hockey. But, I mean, I just chuckled about that. I don't know why I threw it out there right now, but
Yeah.
I chuckled going, the story tomorrow, if this was the Leafs, would be how they gave up the 4-1 lead and barely hung on. But it's not the Leafs, so it's just, let's celebrate how unbelievably dominant they are and how they don't have a single answer for them and how they're gliding to the cup and they're probably going to sweep. It's not really fair.
It's also 3-0 in the series, but I know what you're saying. I think you're at a point where I would scratch and claw any way you could. If I need 60 saves from Bobrovsky, or in the Leafs case, Joe Wall, you get it, you move on. But I know exactly what you're saying. It's just a different feel whenever the Maple Leafs play. And again, getting back to the whole conversation about the crease, just go out there, try to find somebody to solidify things. If it's not Markstrom, if it's not Allmark, Saros has been the guy I like. Philip Gustafsson, again, is a guy I think who is very, very underrated. It sounds like Minnesota, at the very least, from what I hear, will be open to a conversation to potentially deal him. They got Wallstead, Jesper Wallstead, and Marc-Andre Fleury. So they got a youngster in Wallstead coming up the system. And obviously, they got like 16, 17 million against the cap, and Suter and Parisi and those buyouts. They got to pay those guys. It's an insane thing that they're doing right now in Minnesota to reap the benefits in a couple of years from now. But quickly, before we get to the Noah Gregor interview that's coming up, Frank Seravalli, again, putting out a buyout candidates list on Wednesday on dailyfaceoff.com. A couple of names I would throw out there. Pierre-Luc Dubois, that's a heavy contract to buy out. Jack Campbell, who's here in the Stanley Cup Final, clearly not playing. Barclay Goodrow, who had a really good postseason with the Rangers. Eunice Korpisalo, just year one of his mega deal with Ottawa. JG Pajot, Torrey Krug's a guy who ran a power play back in the day for Boston. Really hasn't come to form with the St. Louis Blues. Cal Peterson, he's like a third tertiary Martin Jones type option in between the pipes. Cam Atkinson, Ryan Suter. There's not really those prolific names, but I would add, every year when it comes to buyouts, man, there's a couple that come out of nowhere. If you recall last year, Matt Duchene was the big name, and look what he did with the Dallas Stars this year, right? So I think we got to take a wait and see approach with this whole thing. But ideally, from the Maple Leafs perspective, you can jump on one of these guys or two of these guys and pay them, like, because they're getting buyouts, pay them cheaper than they would be actually worth in the market.
Well, totally. They're double dipping. I remember
Yeah.
changing beside Vinny LeCavalier in Philadelphia, and it was payday, and we had the envelopes in. Well, the envelope is payday, and you go and check out the stub or whatever, and he changed beside me in the the street clothes lockers or whatever the hell they're called. And I'm looking over his shoulder as he's got two envelopes, right? One from Tampa, one from Philly. And I'm looking over, and the guy's made like 110 million already. And I'm
Wild.
looking over his shoulder, and he turns around and goes, "Double dipping, baby." I was like, Jesus, you're awesome, sir. But once you get bought out, you're still making money for nothing. You can take a little bit of less to go somewhere and help a team out and say, I might be worth X. It wasn't worth what I was making, but I'm still making. What do you get? What do you get? 1/3 over double the time?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're making money, obviously. And
Yeah.
I don't know, the one guy that's standing out on that list, like Torrey Krug, is he over the hill, kind of a moving
is.
defenseman? He's still a lefty, I believe.
No, it's Berube.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, man. Let's see who actually comes to fruition. But those are guys you can keep an eye on. Obviously, they're getting bought out for a reason, not necessarily because they're bombing or anything, but because they're just not worth a big salary, and it's worth to open up that space. And you could jump on a guy that way. It's not going to be a world beater, I don't think, though.
Okay, let's get to Noah Gregor. This interview is brought to you by Wendy's, the home of fresh, never frozen Canadian beef. Whether you order a Baconator, Dave Single, or even a JBC, Wendy's only ever uses fresh Canadian beef that's never seen the inside of a freezer. Download the Wendy's app, check out the latest deals, and order today. As we present to you from earlier this week, here is Noah Gregor. Once again, welcome back to Leafs Morning Take, our main man, Noah Gregor. Noah, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, just hanging out. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Thank you so much for doing this. First and foremost, what was your experience like as a Maple Leaf? What have you been up to since the season ended?
It was awesome, honestly. I love my time in Toronto. It's the first time coming to a new team in my career, so it was a little bit different in that sense. But the organization treated me unbelievably. The guys were great. I got right into it, fairly quick, and I loved my time there. And as of right now, just back in Edmonton, back in the gym, and just hanging out, enjoying some time back home.
Greg's, what was the biggest difference you noticed going from a market and an organization like San Jose Sharks? Obviously, great and everything, NHL, nothing against the Sharks, but to come to Toronto, a different beast. What were some of the differences you noticed going to a market like that?
Yeah, I think anytime you go from a smaller-ish market to probably the biggest market in the league, it's there's some big changes. I think just the way the way the organization is run is second to none. I think the staff we have in Toronto is unbelievable. Anything you could want, they're there to help you out, and they want to help, which is awesome to see. And then just the support we get from the fans was crazy. Just walking around, you'll get recognized. Like, I don't get recognized too much. I'm not saying I'm getting recognized that much, but even just to get once every month is pretty cool to see. And I really appreciated that, and it was awesome.
So obviously we have the unique perspective. Greg's on this show. Rosie played for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's good friends with Luke Shen, who was on the team last year. So they always just speak glowingly to the organization. What was it like to live it, to be a Maple Leaf, to be, what's the team like and the organization behind the scenes?
Yeah, it was awesome. Kind of like I said, just everyone wants to help the team win, help the players win. Whether that's the equipment staff, the medical staff reaching out, whether you're hurt or you're healthy, just trying to make sure you're in the best shape you can be. Our dietitians, our chefs, everyone wants to help you out. And then I think just the attitude and the culture we had, just kind of the way the Leafs have been the past few years. Our goal is to win a Stanley Cup, and our goal is to go as far as you can, and that was made known from the first day at camp. Is we have a goal here, and we're going to do everything we can to accomplish that. Obviously, we know what happened in the playoffs, and we didn't achieve that. But I really noticed that's everyone's goal in Toronto is to accomplish that.
For sure. Speaking of that, they made a big splash here hiring Craig Berube. He's going to come into that locker room. What are your thoughts on him? Do you have any experience with him? And what do you think that'll do to that locker room?
Yeah, no experience with Craig. Obviously, coaches changes happen. Sheldon did, I think a good job with us. I appreciated his time, but sometimes in hockey things have to change, and I think Craig will come in and maybe give a different voice. I don't know too much about him, honestly. I don't know many guys that had him in St. Louis, so I don't quite know the type of coach he is within the room. I've just heard from outside information of what he could be like, but I think a new voice can always help a team.
Greg's, you specifically, like, I thought it was so unique how you made your Stanley Cup playoff debut. It was game 6 and 7, man. You're just thrown into the fire. But this is ultimately why you elected to join the Maple Leafs. I mean, taking nothing away from your time in San Jose where you were a standout. We had you as you signed your PTO with the Maple Leafs last summer. But what was that overall experience like? I know you guys fell short in game 7, but just the atmosphere and just being a part of the Stanley Cup playoffs and playing in something you dreamed of as a kid.
Yeah, it was really cool to get in game 6. I was just trying to do my best to stay ready throughout those first 5 games. I knew when my time was called that I would be ready. And just the first game was at home, which made it pretty special for me. Just it's a completely different vibe. I tell people back home the difference between the playoffs and the regular season, and it's just it brings you back to why you're playing the game of hockey, right? It's you're there to win, and it's a crazy atmosphere. And obviously we had a really intense and exciting series to be in, so that made it even better.
Obviously, yeah, you fell short. We don't need to beat on that. That happens. But being around a player like, say, Austin Matthews, this season he had running for 70, what was it like being on that guy's team, watching him every day? What you learned from him? How does he go about his business? And what was that like playing with a player of that caliber?
Yeah, it was great. I hadn't met him before. Hadn't really seen much of him. Obviously, being in San Jose, we only play him twice a year. But he is, he's a true pro. He takes his craft very seriously. He's always working at getting better. You'll see him, at practice. He's out there early working on his shot, his different plays that not other players I don't think really think of. And that was really really special to see. And then obviously just the way he was scoring during the season was crazy. I would have thought he would have had 70 earlier than what happened. He was on fire for the first, well, really all year, but the first like 2 months, it was crazy. It was so special to see. Unfortunately 70 didn't happen for him, but I think 69 is it's a pretty crazy number to get to.
And it's a phenomenal number. And I made a joke of it on the show. One of my buddies actually bought a Poppy 69 jersey and wearing that in the street on King Street West on a Friday night. My goodness, it's your field to play.
Yeah.
So you'll be a restricted free agent once again this summer. What's the play? Are you open to returning here to the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, 100%. I love my time in Toronto. It's a little out of my control right now. I'm still restricted, so it's it'll be up to Tree Living and the staff there to see if I work with the team moving forward. But I love my time in Toronto. I want to be back. I want to continue to help this team in the playoffs and like I said, eventually have a chance at winning Cup, because I think we have all the pieces here that can do it, and I'd love to have a chance at doing that.
And speaking of that, I mean, a lot of people analyze, ourselves included, what's missing? What do they need to get over the hump? Obviously, there's a lot of support behind the Maple Leafs and lots of people like-minded that want to get to the same result as you guys do. What did you see from this past season, the tweaks that could be made that could get this team to be kind of firing on all cylinders and get over that hump?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough question. I think, we are such a solid team, and we have, in my opinion, all the pieces that it takes to be a contending team and to go far in the playoffs. I mean, if you really dissect our series, it's as close as it can get against Boston. We were without Austin for a game. We were without Willie for a couple games. Though those are obviously two of our best players. So that doesn't help. But I don't know. I think going through this, I know that we've been through it before, but I think just more experience going through it again, and maybe a new voice with Craig coming in will help us adjust some things in systematically. I don't know what he has planned for that. So yeah, it's a tough question. I don't really know.
A lot's been made, just to wrap here, a lot's been made of sort of the Amazon thing that's coming in October. Were the cameras like visible? Were they around a lot, Greg's?
Yeah, they were for, I don't know the exact time they came in, but maybe 5-10 games before the season ended. And throughout the playoffs, they were there. There was a few of them. They in the playoffs, they were coming on the bus with us and obviously following Willie around. They stayed out of their way for as best as they can. They obviously got to be in the dressing room and doing what they need to do to create good content. And I think Willie is a perfect guy for that show. He lives a pretty interesting life, and obviously his play on the ice speaks for itself. He's an unbelievable player, so that'll be exciting to see that come out.
Was that distracting though? Like everyone's trying to get on the same page and make a run, and you got this outside source poking around, and Willie's trying to make content for them. And like, was it a distraction? Would you prefer that if that just doesn't happen again?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, we're pretty used to it now, especially being in a market like Toronto. We always have the TNT games, or just the Sportsnet guys in general. They're always in the room. They're always having cameras around. So it wasn't too much different from regular games, I guess.
Well, Greg's, we'd be the first to say we hope you're back in the mix, man. You're just a quality human being first and foremost, and I just love the speed that you bring to this lineup. I love what you brought in the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. So appreciate your time today, and hopefully we chat soon, bud.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll see you guys soon, hopefully.
Thanks, Noah. Have a good summer, man.
Yeah.
What an absolute gem. That is Noah Gregor, currently the Toronto Maple Leafs. Very curious to see what transpires with him. I think reading the tea leaves in the conversation, there's uncertainty surrounding his future as a Maple Leaf. Unfortunately, he's a beauty, man.
Yeah, good Alberta boy giving us the time. We'll see where he fits in if he gets kind of shoved out with some of the depth that's happening. Time will tell, but that is the life of a pro hockey player, my man.
I will say it's tough to get Leafs players to come on this show. So anybody who comes on this show, we love you forever. So thank you to Noah Gregor the second time here on Leafs Morning Take. Rosie, it's time for the Great Clips Inbox Question of the Week. With more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada, Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand and official hair salon of the NHL. Excuse me. Salons are locally owned and operated and open 7 days a week. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app. See the wait time. Check it on your phone and get your haircut when you want. So one of the questions posed in the chat with regards to Joseph Woll and how many games we want to see him play through the course of 82. Health granted. I mean, you don't know what's going to transpire with the guy, unfortunately. But what's like the perfect blend for you when it comes to somebody coming in and Joseph Woll through 82 games?
Depends who his partner is, to be honest. And obviously health is something you can't really plan for. But, I just think like a nice split. Like you're playing half the games, you're going back and forth. A guy's going to get hot for a while and play for a little while, and the other guy's going to get hot. But I just hope that he takes a step in his career, in his development, and just continues on the path he's on to become the guy that he potentially could be, right? And he's got it between the ears. He's got the ability physically. I think he's a pro. He knows what to do, and just continue to develop and become that stud where in a year or two's time, you're like, he's our absolute bona fide number one, no questions asked. And I hope he takes a step towards that again this year.
By the way, my guy Julian Altabelli sort of making fun of me, saying Nicky had one too many Negronis last night. Not true. As Rosie knows, I've been dealing with something for like 8 weeks, and it gives me a parched throat. And just every morning, it's the same old conversation where I lose my voice. So I wish I could say I was getting after it a bit last night, but I limited myself to like 5 or 6 drinks, man. I called it early. Good night. To get to your point on Joseph Woll, health is first and foremost, but I need a good support system. There's got to be, again, getting back to the convo about a goaltender, need somebody to come in, solidify that crease. And also to that point, I think it's important. Like, I think they had the luxury of having Martin Jones this season. If it's not going to be Jones, I think you need to have that tertiary option, especially in this day and age, how volatile that crease has become, where you can no longer, Rosie, go through a season and expect your two guys and just two guys to play. I think we're past that point in this league. I look more down the line, the tertiary option, and hell, like even the fourth guy.
Well, Jonesy was solid, exactly what they
Yeah.
needed. Bailed them out many times, kept them in the standings, kept rattling points off, and it didn't cost a lot. He could go down to the Marlies if need be with some solid contract work by the powers that be up there, and they threw that little bonus in there at a certain point in time where everyone's on waivers. Why not go back to him again and go back to the well, stick with what works? If you lose him, you're just going out to find another one of him. So I like it too. And yeah, you can't always guarantee that your goalies are going to be healthy, and to have that little, cheap, capable guy waiting in the reads is huge, and you already have him. He's proven it. So I say go back to the well and see if you can grab him and do the same thing as last year if need be.
For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips, it's going to be great. A bunch of people are laughing in the chat. The fact that I said I limited it to 5 or 6 drinks, that's a lather on for me, man. That's just getting the night cooking a bit. If you really want to get me going, it's probably quadruple 5 or 6 drinks. So that's like just a lather on, folks. That's like getting the a Caesar salad before your meal, for me at least.
It is. It prevents a hangover. I mean, 5 or 6 shouldn't get you hungover if
No,
you're
I'm
used
not.
to it. Some
I
people
feel great
probably
today.
does. Everyone has different limits and different lifestyles, Nicholas. We know this.
True. We don't endorse anything of that nature on this show. I will say, not a great flyer. Even flying over here, I can't sleep on planes. I'm so thrown off with the time change. Obviously, I'm on Eastern time zone in Toronto, now on Mountain time here, but even just wasn't a great sleep the night before. So, when you're like really, really tired, like that's the feel I have. I felt the same way weirdly, and I was in the Eastern time zone in Florida. I just can't sleep early flights the night before, and I can't sleep on planes, man. It's really weird. Getting to that point, obviously you took a lot of flights in your career. Were you a guy that just, even before the plane took off, you were lights out for you?
I'm hit or miss. Sometimes I'll take a good nap. Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
be looking forward to the big nap and it doesn't happen. Depends where your seat is. Depends how much room you have. I can sleep on it, but I am not a guy that minds flying at all. I don't even think about like the airplane or the jitters or what. It doesn't even cross my mind. So yeah, I'm a pretty easy flyer. I like flying. Well, I like just not having, like, people are like, oh my God, it's a 4-hour flight. I'm like, dude, have a drink, watch a movie, read a book, take a nap. Like, oh my God, how awful that is. Like, I'm a big guy and I don't think it's that uncomfortable on a plane. You do what you do. And I don't mind flying at all. It's kind of nice.
Donnie Does Dishes writes in, and you need a window seat, Nick. I do get window seats. That is my favorite. I like looking out the window, which is kind of ironic because I'm scared of heights, but there's something soothing about flying, but also turbulence that scares the shit out of me, and it doesn't matter. Like, I've taken a billion flights. You know me. I've been to 29 countries. It really depends on the flight and the turbulence, but I just can't sleep on planes. It's really, really unfortunate. One day, maybe it does happen. I've been told gummies could work, so I might try that. I've tried Gravol. My body just resists sleep on plane unless I'm like really tired. It's only happened a couple times. I'll come back from Europe and I'll just be so tired that I just pass out. That's what needs to happen, I think, one day.
Well, maybe take care of your body when you're on the road and do the right thing so that it's not such a detrimental thing to your health.
Love the breakdown from Jay Rosehill, my main man right there. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, Rosie. So let's look ahead to Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final. I am sorry to say it. I didn't envision it. I talked about it to start the show. I will be there for the cup raising moment in Edmonton tomorrow. I think we're seeing a sweep.
Potentially. I know it's tough. I mean, in that locker room for the Oilers, your back's not just against the wall, but you're damn near dead in the water. So to find, that fourth game is supposed to be the hardest one to win for the Panthers in this situation. And I just, when you're up 3-0, man, it's demoralizing. And, I don't think no one's ever come back from that in the finals. It's it's tough, man, and they haven't been able to solve them. They might be a bit banged up. I just wonder what they'll have. So I'm not against that. I'll be going to some other props. I don't know if McDavid's going to make one last ditch effort to try to be a factor, if he's going to be the over in the shots. I don't know what to expect from this game, man. I really don't know if they're just going to finish it off and win it with a sweep, which is so disappointing for so many different reasons, not just Oilers fans, but just for the league and, for hockey to continue, and those nights where everyone's wondering who's watching the game where and getting excited for it. I really wanted an exciting series, and I'm sorry, but it hasn't been that way so far.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Even if you watch basketball, it's been just a total write-off as well. It's 3-0 Boston in that series. We could see a couple of sweeps here. And I was sitting at the bar last night, and somebody was wearing a Florida Panthers jersey. He was trying to change his flight. And I'm like, man, you have to. Like, there's a potential your team's going to win a cup and you're flying home after game 3. But he couldn't make it work. You have to feel pretty damn good if you're a Florida Panthers fan right now as we ride into another weekend here on Leafs Morning Take. Excellent stuff, Rosie. We're going to reconvene on Monday. As mentioned, today marks the 2-week mark until the NHL Draft, which is going to be wild in itself. I'm looking forward to it. We got over the crazy time, the difficult transition time from the Leafs getting eliminated to like the Stanley Cup Final. We're almost there, bud.
I know it's been a grind trying to find topics and relevant things to talk about, but hey, you just get on here and shoot the shit a little bit.
Grind it out, baby. Many thanks to Noah Gregor for dropping by the show once again. You guys in the chat were phenomenal as per usual. Appreciate the support all season long at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Monday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.